Story 1. Every time I see this one video where it's the GameCube startup sound, but it ends with a guy tripping and yelling SHIT, I burst out laughing. Cannot explain why. Story 2. My two friends and I were working on a movie, but we messed up some files and accidentally replaced the black screen after a character's suicide with a panorama of cinnamon rolls. Story 3. I was in a large multi-floor bookstore, walking down a flight of stairs, when I heard a phone ring. The sales clerk answered it. Self-help? May I help you? That seemed like the funniest thing in the world to me, and I burst out laughing. Not just one chuckle, but sustained laughter that made people start to look at me. That seemed even more absurd, so I rushed to a new section, but still laughing and attracting more attention, so I sped up more, laughing harder, attracting new attention in every new location, until eventually I ran a half circuit of the floor and took refuge under the stairs I had come down so that I could compose myself. Story 4. I was in a scholastic assessment test class and we were going over practice questions. The instructor read out, "A group of spoon collectors," and I began laughing so hard and for so long that I had to leave the classroom. I'm over it now, but it was troubling. Story 5. Sometime in the mid to late 2000s, my husband was on the phone with iRobot customer support regarding our Roomba. I was in another room, but I could hear his side of the conversation clearly, and I could tell he wasn't getting the results he'd hoped for. As he got more frustrated, he blurted out, "I've had problems with this robot since the day I brought it home." Something about that particular phrase just hit me hard. I immediately started laughing and couldn't stop. I was still laughing when he got off the phone. Understandably, he wanted to know what was wrong with me. Through maniacal laughter, I parroted the phrase back to him, which had something of a feedback loop effect on my laughter. It's been over a decade, but thinking of that phrase still makes me giggle. Story 6. A few weeks back, I was taking a shower, and I looked at my foot, and it just looked so stupid that I started laughing and couldn't stop. I had these weird paw-like failed hands attached to my legs, and they were so ridiculous looking, and I was just going around with my body ending that way. I laughed at my foot for about 5 straight minutes. Story 7. I was working in a group home, finishing up some paperwork after an overnight shift, and accidentally wrote shampoo instead of shampoo. One of the residents asked me if I needed help because I was laughing so hard. Story 8. I misheard an episode of Octonauts about the coconut crab. The phrase astronaut crabs conjured simultaneous images of crabs in spacesuits and also giant crabs cracking open astronauts with their claws, and I absolutely lost it. I could hardly breathe. There were tears of mirth. My children were terrified, but also trying to keep up with the joke, which I could barely explain. We still talk about it, but it will never be quite as funny as when my brain caught me by surprise. Story 9. I legitimately almost died, I'm pretty sure, while playing a video game. One of my wife's favorite games is Shenmue. Originally released on the Dreamcast in 1999, it plays like an early prototype for games like Yakuza or Sleeping Dogs, but it was very crude by any modern standard. It's quite bad, I would say, in fact, but in a so bad it's good sort of way, which is very rare for video games. They released a remaster a couple of years ago, and she had me play through it while she watched. She wanted to see what I thought of it. The plot revolves around the main character investigating his father's murder. He does this mostly by wandering around town and just asking random people on the street questions, hoping it will somehow help. At one point, he gets a lead that something might be going on at the docks. The main character, who isn't too bright, thinks, "Hey, sailors work at the docks. I should talk to some sailors. So, do you go to the docks?" No, that would make too much sense. Instead, as you wander around town aimlessly, you can ask people, "Do you know where I could find some sailors?" over and over again. It started to get pretty funny, just asking random people for sailors constantly. Well, at one point, my wife went to the bathroom, and I stopped to look at the in-game journal. It's where the game keeps all your notes of things you've learned, but they're all written in faux handwriting as if the main character wrote himself a note. I flip it open, and the only thing on the current page in big letters is, "Must find sailors." I completely lost it. We had already been kind of laughing about the search for sailors for like an hour, and when that popped up, it was like the last straw and something in my head broke. I was completely hysterical with laughter. couldn't stop, couldn't breathe, started to hurt. That only made me laugh harder, and I was starting to worry I was gonna pass out. My wife walked back in from the bathroom and was very confused. She was just in time to see my cat, who had been curled up on the couch next to me, start to yowl and sweat at me. Apparently, my lunatic laughter had unnerved him. "What's so funny?" she asked. I gestured weakly toward the screen with the still open journal and managed to ease out, "Must find sailors," as I fell into another fit of laughter. It was a good 5 to 10 minutes before I was coherent. "Must find sailors" is still a nice little private joke between us. Story 10. I didn't question my sanity, but I got stuck in a laughing loop with my then 1-year-old son. He was laughing at my laugh and I was laughing at his. It was the better part of an hour, and we were both exhausted afterward. It was over 30 years ago, and it still makes me smile when I think about it. Story 11. In high school, a guy at my table was asked if he ever had sex, and with the most straight face said, "No, but I've seen dogs do it." His frankness and deadpan attitude made me laugh so hard, and for so long I was worried that I was going to pass out. Story 12. There's a sticker in my phone keyboard gallery of a purple llama with a box of carrots, and it says, "Busy." I saw it at work and laughed so hard I was crying. I legitimately could not stop my brain from recalling the image. I had to leave work. Edit. It's actually a person dressed up in a purple llama suit. Drama llama. Story 13. I don't remember the context, but my best friend and I, then in our preteens or early teens, were flopping around on her bedroom floor and screaming, "Fish out of water." We insisted on showing her mom, who looked at us like we were on meth. I almost passed out because I could not breathe from laughing so hard. Story 14. I was in the grocery store about 2 weeks ago and went to grab some eggs. As I opened the box to check them, I was reminded of a post on Reddit about a guy who went a great deal of his life not knowing why people open egg boxes, but was nervous if he didn't do it, people would stare at him. So he would open them just to look the part. I started laughing out loud while looking at the eggs. People were staring at me. I never got out of there so fast. Laughing out loud. Story 15. My mom once said, "Boo," to my dad, who kept hiccuping to make him stop. She said it in the most innocent and pure way that we couldn't stop laughing. The laughing went on for like an hour, though. Story 16. My friends and I went on a trip with a youth leadership organization. The trip was supposed to last 5 days, but our flight back home was delayed a full 22 hours. We ended up staying in a hotel and playing Cards Against Humanity. I think the prompt had something to do with the worst line on a first date or something like that. One of us answered, "Yeast." We laughed for 10 full minutes, and my sides hurt for the rest of the night. Story 17. It was a windy day, and I was eating a bagged lunch with my coworkers. Suddenly, a huge gust of wind blew the bag and all my food away, leaving me staring at an empty table with a fork in my hand. I didn't even try to catch it. I just started laughing so hard I had to lie on the ground. Story 18. This is the end bloopers when they're talking about their religion, and Craig Robinson says, "And Danny is Muslim," and Danny McBride just says, "Shalom." It's not even that funny, but I lose my composure every single time. Story 19. I read a meme asking if Norwegian clowns say junk. My girlfriend speaks fluent Norwegian and told me how that would be pronounced, kind of a hionk. I thought I was gonna pass out from lack of air due to laughing. I'd catch a grip every now and then, and a quiet hionk would make me laugh harder. Story 20. My family was eating at Red Robin when my grandpa told a great joke. I laughed so hard that I messed my pants. I was around 5 years old. My dad took me to the restroom and asked if they were my lucky underwear. I said no. He cut them off with his pocket knife, cleaned me up, and went back out to finish our meal. Story 21. I am in Toys R Us with my 3-year-old who suddenly says she has to go to the bathroom. Oh no, number 1 or 2? 2. I grab her hand and rush to find an employee. Do you have a bathroom? Yes, but it's all the way on the other end of the store. I turn to my daughter. We have to run. Okay? Nah, don't worry. I blew it out. What's that now? I blew it out. I could barely carry my daughter through the store because I was laughing uncontrollably. Had to ditch her pants and underwear in the bathroom garbage and carry her out with my coat wrapped around her waist. Still laughing hysterically. I must have looked absolutely insane. Story 22. This actually happened to me and a friend of mine. We were high and typing random phrases into Google Translate. He suggested I type in dingleberries and translate it to Spanish. It translated to Bayos del Dingle. For some reason, we lost our composure at that. I don't think we stopped laughing for half an hour. My head was throbbing from laughing so hard, and my lungs hurt. Story 23. My friend and I were watching Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs when we were about 12. There's a scene in that movie where a giant bowl of water spills on everybody sitting in bleachers, and there is a guy in the splash zone ready to get wet, except everybody except him gets splashed instead, and he throws his hat on the ground and yells, "Ah, come on!" My friend and I laughed our heads off at this, and this eventually led to us replaying a ton of scenes in slow motion, zoomed in, and so on. Story 24. Late at night during a middle school sleepover, my friends and I started to play a board game called Worst Case Scenario. The cover has two pictures on it, one of a shark and one of a man running from a swarm of bees. Somebody pointed out it looked like the guy was running from the bees straight into the shark's mouth, and we laughed for 10 minutes straight. The true worst-case scenario. Story 25. It was actually something in an AskReddit thread. The question was something along the lines of, what is an unsolved mystery or paranormal activity that cannot be explained? Someone's reply was that one time when they were younger they farted and the television turned off. I have no idea why, but something about how it was sandwiched between much more serious replies just made me lose it. I was laughing so much my wife came to ask what was so funny. Her reaction, basically calling me an idiot, made me laugh even more. Even as I typed this comment, I'm grinning like an idiot thinking about it. Edit. Whoa, this blew up. My wife is still sleeping beside me, and I'm giggling, reading all these replies. Thanks for all the awards and all the laughs. This is what makes Reddit awesome. Story 26. Many years ago, I went through about a week-long phase where I simply could not read my credit card number over the phone without laughing hysterically. No reason, it just started one day. Then I think I got all up in my head and it just snowballed from there. Every time I tried to order food, confirm some travel reservation, whatever, I would start laughing and it would take me forever to get through the number. The surprising thing was how infectious the laughter was. I thought the people on the other end of the phone would be annoyed, but probably 9 times out of 10 they'd start laughing too. It was like some virulent mindworm of contagious hysteria. And then just as suddenly as it started, it was over. Hasn't happened since, though I still brace myself every time, just in case. Story 27. I had a dream recently that a friend of mine spent 2 full hours focusing intensely hard on writing something down. When he was finally finished, he showed it to me. In a 5-year-old's handwriting in crayon, the page simply read, "Apple cider donuts." I laughed so hard I woke myself up crying. Story 28. I had my best friend in high school over for a sleepover, and my mom had fallen asleep on the couch while we were all hanging out. My little brother, who was around 10 at the time, thought it would be funny to grab my mom's hairdryer, stand over her sleeping body, point the hairdryer at her, and yell, "Where were you on the night of the murder?" This startled her awake. That was enough to send us into hysterics, but what made it even better was her reaction. She shook her head, slowly sat up, and told my brother, "Okay, time for bed," in her most tired voice. My best friend and I spent the next 10 minutes rolling around on the floor, laughing and screaming. Story 29. In a movie my family and I were watching, a man was slowly lifting a gun to fire at a woman. They didn't show her getting hit. They only showed a close-up of her high heels staggering back and forth. I lost it laughing. Everybody in the room was glaring at me. Story 30. My wife, then girlfriend, and I were on the bus. A couple of stoners got on the bus, and randomly one of them said, "Dude, what if somebody made medical marijuana that gave you superpowers?" My girlfriend nearly died laughing. She tried to stay somewhat quiet to not be rude, but she failed. The stoners continued to talk about this and what kind of powers they would want for the whole bus ride. Imitating taking a hit, I have munchy vision. This only made her laughing fits worse. Her laughing fit eventually caused me to laugh uncontrollably, and it was just like a self-sustaining fusion reaction at that point. Story 31. Really high, doing a puzzle with my husband, and we were eating the worst frozen pizza we had ever eaten. Like, just the worst. It was supposed to be garlic cheese, and it tasted like absolute nothing and cardboard, so we started pulling everything out of the fridge to put on it and make it better. Finally, my husband decided he was going to cook a bunch of hot dogs and roll them up in the pizza. Somehow, the concept of hot dog pizza was so incredibly funny, we both started laughing and couldn't stop. I laughed so hard. For so long it became physically painful, and I couldn't breathe, but I couldn't stop laughing, so I was just barking out this weird honking cough. By the time we stopped laughing, I was pretty sure I had laughed myself sober. We marked the date on our calendar, so we never forgot Hot Dog Pizza Day. And a month after that night, Pizza Hut came out with hot dog crust pizza, and I swear they were spying on us. Edit. For anyone who wanted to know, Hot Dog Pizza Day is October 13th.